Hello, amazing entrepreneur. It's Tash Corbin here, and welcome to another episode of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. This is episode number 347, which means you can find all the relevant links and show notes for today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/347. In today's episode, I'm answering the question, how do I encourage my mailing list to reply to my emails? Now, I also have a question submitted by the amazing Zoe Stevens about getting people to open your emails and getting them delivered to their inbox, not to spam. So we'll address that as well. But I thought we could also go deeper and get people replying. So we're going to answer two questions really in this episode, and it's going to be a super helpful one. So make sure that you check out the show notes at tashcorbin.com/347 because I'm going to have some links there for you as well. Let's dive in. I'm Tash Corbin, and this is the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. So this podcast episode was prompted by a question that was asked by the amazing Zoe Stevens. Now you can find her website at zoestevens.com.au, and we'll also link to her Instagram account and her website over with today's show notes at tashcorbin.com/347. Now, Zoe asked, "Hi Tash, I've just listened to podcast episode 296, which is 5 ways to increase email open rates, which I found really helpful. Following on from that, I was wondering how to make sure the confirmation email after someone signs up with you and your subsequent emails get delivered to their inbox rather than to the spam folder. Thanks." From Zoe. So this is such a great question, Zoe. And we'll also link back to episode 296 in the show notes of today's episode because that one covers open rates, right? So what I thought we could do in today's episode is how to get into the inbox. We've already covered how to get them to open the emails. And then from there, how do you get people to actually reply? Because we know connection drives conversion. So the more that people are replying to your emails, the more that you are going to see your leads go up and also increase your chances of making sales. So first and foremost, to answer Zoe's question. Now, this is a little bit complicated and it does take a multi-pronged approach. So the first thing to do is to think about what would drive someone as soon as they've signed up to your mailing list to make sure that they can find the confirmation email. So if someone joins your mailing list for something that's, oh yeah, I'll get that from you in 3 weeks' time, then they're less likely to immediately go and check where the email went to, right? So when you're getting people to sign up to your mailing list, regardless of what is incentivizing it, whether it's a webinar that's in 3 weeks' time, or whether it's to be on a wait list for something, or whether it's to grab a free resource, you want to make it very clear that it's super valuable for them to go and find the email that they just got for registering now. Okay, so it might be considering, well, what is the value proposition of the free resource that you're providing, or the opt-in, or the lead magnet, and making that a little more strong. It might be not just once they've signed up, but also on the sign up page, talking about, why this is something to address quickly, why this is something, grab it from your inbox immediately so that you can achieve this particular outcome. And even if people are signing up for a webinar of mine, for example, and that's their first time on my mailing list, I always give them a reason to go and look for the confirmation email straight away. And it's usually because in the confirmation email, I've linked to another really great resource that they can use straight away. So even though they're signing up for a webinar that may be in 2 or 3 weeks' time, they are encouraged to go and check their inbox now because I've got something for them to start with now. People are signing up for my webinar because they want to achieve that outcome. So if my webinar, for example, is about how to make sales from your mailing list, then I will, in the confirmation email, give them a free training on how to grow their mailing list. See how those things are linked, and you can start growing your email list today so that once you come to the webinar, you'll then know how to make sales to that mailing list. So finding things that are linked or things that are the step before and providing an immediate resource for people will mean that they're more likely to sign up and then go and check their inbox. Think about your own sign up behaviors. How many times have you signed up for a mailing list and then not even bothered to go and check if you got their email because there was nothing for you to do, or there was nothing urgent, there was no reason to go and grab it straight away? Even for me, I find if I sign up for checklists and ebooks and those sorts of things, I will constantly tell myself I'll go and get that later. I'll sign up now, but I'll go and read it later. Whereas if I am told why it's something I should address straight away, or if it's clear that it's something that's really valuable and urgent, or if they give me a reason and say, make sure you go and check your inbox straight away so that A, B, and C, then I'm far more likely to actually go and check my inbox and go and hunt that confirmation email down. So that's number one, is make it, something that's gives people a reason to go and open the email and look for the email straight away. That can be really helpful. The second thing is to treat your thank you page real estate really carefully. So the amount of times that I've signed up for a free resource and literally the thank you page says, thank you for signing up. That's it. It astounds me. There's no instruction. There's no, well done, you're going to achieve this outcome. I don't even feel good about signing up. I just feel like I've done you a favor. So think about that real estate on your thank you page and think about the value, the connection, the urgency, the information that you can provide on that thank you page. Now, importantly, if the thank you page is pages and pages and pages long, people are also going to click away. So it's not a matter of putting as much on the thank you page as possible. It's about concisely creating connection, urgency, and giving direction so that people do check straight away and go and track that email down. Now, these days, you're less likely to have to instruct people on exactly how to safe list you or to go and look in the promotions tab and drag me over to your inbox. People know how to manage their inboxes far more effectively these days, but you do sometimes need to remind them to just go and quickly double check that the email came through. So have a think about how you can articulate and share that really quickly and effectively. And, what else can you do to create that sense of connection? And, you've done the right thing, so let's make it work. So sometimes on my thank you pages, you'll see me say something like, okay, you've grabbed that checklist, but here's the tough news. The checklist doesn't work when it's just sitting in your inbox somewhere collecting dust. So what I want you to do is go and grab the download from your inbox and save it to a place where you will see it every time you log into your computer so that you remember to use it, because the checklist is only effective if you actually use it. So, and if it's something that I think would be worthwhile printing out, I will say that as well. If you're signing up to a webinar of mine, as I said, usually there's something you can do straight away. And I say, make sure you go and check that you've got the confirmation email, because that will give you the link to go and do this free training. So I'm very clear with people to go and actually look for the email. Now, the more that you're a good email sender through your platform, like MailChimp or MailerLite or ActiveCampaign or Kartra or Kajabi, whatever you use to send your mass emails, the less you get those marked as spam, the more chance it is that it ends in people's inbox instead of their promotions tab or in their spam box. The more that it's personalized, the more likely that it's going to go into their actual inbox. So make use of those smart tags. If you can say, when someone signs up, have hi first name, right? And actually have it magically insert their first name, then it's far more likely to get into their actual inbox as well. If it says, hey, gorgeous, da 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 da, and there's no personalization, then it's going to be more flagged by the AI within people's inboxes as this is potentially spam. There are also certain words that can flag things as potential promotions as spam as well. So I generally limit my use of the words free, the use of the $sign. I limit my use of things that might trigger that spam alert. So even things like donation, money, finance, income, anything money related will sometimes, be a trigger. Now, I'm not an expert on what those words are. I actually have someone who I engage on a project basis to help me review my emails through that lens. But I do know that you can Google for these things. So even if you just go and Google, what words should I avoid in my marketing emails to stay out of the spam box, then there are lots and lots of providers who give a list of just stay away from these words, particularly with the first email. The first email is going to be one of the most important ones. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if people are receiving an email through a mass email system, chances are it's either going to go in their promotions tab or into their spam box in the first instance. So incentivizing the individual to go and look for the email, find it, and safe list you is going to be far more effective than simply just avoiding the word free, right? Those little things will make a couple of percent points in difference, but the biggest difference that's going to be made is people going, oh, I never got that email from Zoe. I'll go and follow up with her, or I'll go and check my spam inbox, right? So having people actually pay attention to what they've signed up for and know that it's important that they go and look for it is going to be the most effective way to ensure that those emails are found and subsequent emails make it to the actual inbox as well. So hopefully that answers your question, Zoe. It's given you a couple of little strategies to think about. But I also wanted to just share with you some quick strategies on how to get replies as well. Because ultimately, having people on your mailing list is amazing, but the more we can turn mass communication into one-to-one communication, the more likely those people are to be leads for your products and services, and the more likely they are to purchase something from you as well. So here are a few things to think about when it comes to getting replies. Number one is make your emails easy to read. The easier your email is to read, the more likely I am to see the little prompt that says, hey, reply and let me know XYZ. If your emails are long and complex and there's 8 sections to them and there's banners and photos and there's just everything and it's busy, or if it's just all words and there's nothing to break it up, if it's words, section break, words, section break, words, section break, words, section break, signature, we're not going to digest all of that information. And interestingly, I find that the emails that I receive from people who are neurodivergent, who have low attention spans, who are very vocal with me about the need for things to be interesting and have variety in order for them to read them, they're the people who I most likely receive those long-winded, long-wordy, complex emails from. So just take some time to look at your email and just ask, would I want to read all of this? Would I open this and instantly go, ooh, or would I open this and go, no, it's too busy, I'll read it later. It's too much for me to actually take in. So do pay attention to the readability of your emails so that if you do include prompts that get people to reply, that they actually get to those prompts and know to reply. 99% of the time, if people aren't replying to a question that you've asked, it's because they never read the question, because it was too much for them to actually sift through. So that's number one. Number two is make it one thing that's easy to reply to. So I will also receive emails that say, hey, send me an email and let me know what is the biggest barrier between you and having amazing copy that attracts your ideal clients. And I'm like, well, if I knew the answer to that question, I wouldn't be on your mailing list, right? I don't know the answer. I don't know what's wrong with my copy. I don't know why it's not attracting the right people. That's why I'm following you. So it's not an easy question for me to answer, so I won't answer it. Or I'll receive questions that are compound questions. There's actually 6 questions in one, and I don't want to miss out and not reply to all of them, so I just don't reply to any of them. Or the question, it just seems either really obvious or you're just asking question for question's sake. I talk about this on social media as well. Don't ask me how I have my coffee if you're never going to order me a coffee or make me a coffee. Right? You're just asking that question because you want to get free engagement. And I'm not going to give it to you. And most people will not answer questions that they perceive as wasting their time. There needs to be something in it for me. So if you're asking me a question, I need to understand why answering that question will be valuable for me as the person doing the work, as the person, taking on this workload of answering you. So if you're asking a question because it's going to contribute to the free resources that I get in the future, well, then I'll be more likely to answer the question. If you tell me, okay, answer this question and I'll help you, then I'll be more likely to answer that question. So on this podcast, I will often say, slide into my DMs and tell me this and I'll do that for you. I might say, slide into my DMs and give me the link to your website and I'll give you a quick 5-minute review of what it tells me and where I think there are some gaps. Slide into my DMs and give me the link to your Instagram page and I'll do a quick 1-minute review of your Instagram page for you. I'm happy to do that work for people because I want to have those one-to-one relationships with people in my audience. By the way, if you're listening to this and you want to send me a link to your website or a link to your Instagram, or you want to send me your messaging or your value proposition and you want me to have a quick look at it, as long as I can do it in under 2 to 3 minutes, I will absolutely do that for you. So feel free to slide into my DMs, peeps, or send me an email, reply to my next newsletter. I'm quite happy to answer those questions or to give you some feedback on things. I've had people message me recently and say, I don't know whether I should focus on this niche or that niche. And we've been able to have a little back and forth conversation. I've helped them move forward. I'm happy to do those sorts of things. I love talking business. So please do always reach out, ask questions. I love it. At the end of this episode, I'm going to tell you how you can ask a question. I'll answer it on the podcast too. So make sure that you pay attention to that. So that is number 2, is to make it something that's simple, easy for me to actually action. And then also think about, well, what's my incentive here? What's in it for me in doing that workload? The next thing is to just ask a question. Instead of embedding your question in your newsletter or in another sales email or somewhere else, why not just send a question? So this is called a SPEAR email. It stands for short, personal, expect a response, SPEAR, right? Short, personal, expect a response. So if you've ever participated in one of my launches, if you joined my mailing list in the last year or so, chances are you've received a SPEAR email from me. And that email might simply say, hey, first name, I'm putting together my next batch of podcasts and I'd love to know, is there something you'd like me to cover? That's a really powerful email to send to my mailing list because people do have some ideas about things that they would like my opinion on, or there's strategies they'd like me to give some more insight into or to break down into step-by-step strategies for them. I'm totally happy to do that in my podcast episodes. So if they feel like they're going to get some valuable information from that, i.e. a podcast episode that answers that question, they'll reply. You may have also had an email from me that says, hey, I want to help as many people as possible to get their online course or their membership off the ground. So reply and let me know, what is your membership or course idea and why haven't you launched it yet? And I'll help you work through it. Right? So it can be as simple as that. It doesn't have to be hidden in your marketing messaging. It doesn't have to be part of another newsletter. You can simply just send an email to your audience and encourage them to reply. And then the final piece of advice I have for getting more replies from your mailing list is when people reply back. Do something with it. Follow through. Because you want to train your audience that sending you emails is rewarded. So if someone's replied to one of your SPEAR emails before and they said, oh, I'd love to hear a podcast from you on how to organize my closet, and you never replied, or you never did the podcast episode on how to organize your closet, or you never gave them any advice, and there was no reward, just like training your dog, Munchkin's sitting right here, that's what it made me think of, well, they're not going to do it again, right? If I don't reward Munchkin with praise and pats and maybe treats for jumping into the bath and being a good girl while she has a little shower and gets a wash, then next time I go to say, hey, jump in the shower, have a wash, she's going to be more resistant to it, right? She's like, well, I don't get anything for that, so I'm not gonna. And it's the same with our audience on a far more human and far less bribery level. But ultimately, if someone goes to the trouble of answering a question of yours or replying to an email and they're met with crickets, then why would they ever reply again? You've told them that they don't matter. You've told them that you don't care. You've told them that you probably don't read the emails anyway. You were just trying to lure them in to reply to stuff. So why would they ever do it again? Think about your follow through. Think about your responses. Think about how you thank people for giving you great suggestions for your podcast or for your content. How you, how you reward and praise people. Whether you reward them with saying, oh, that's such a good one, I'm going to pop that into the content plan. Or whether you say, oh, that's probably not something I would cover in my podcast, but here's my top 3 tips for you. Thanks so much for asking, right? You don't have to always turn it into a podcast episode or a free resource or something along those lines, but at least acknowledge the question and reward the behavior that you want people to take. If they do it, reward them, follow through. Take the conversation further, make it worth their while to have put in that effort to reply to you. So that is my advice for not only how to get those emails into the inbox, but also how to get those replies. I hope that you found that super helpful. Now I'm going to do what I just told you to do, and I'm going to encourage you to come and ask me questions for future podcast episodes, because Zoe's question was one of the last questions that I had in the bank of questions people have been asking. And so I'd love to create podcasts that actually address questions you have for me. So if you go to tashcorbin.com/question, you can submit your name and your social links and your website if you've got one, and a question that I can answer on the podcast. And then not only will I answer it on a podcast, but I'll also give you a shout out like I just did for Zoe on this episode. And I'll give you link back. So I'll link to your socials. I'll link to your website if you've got one. I am absolutely happy to do that for you and give your website a little SEO boost, give your socials a little algorithm boost as a thank you for submitting your really helpful questions that drive the content plan that I have for this podcast. It's a win-win situation. So make sure you head to tashcorbin.com/question. Pop your question in there. And I look forward to reading your questions and answering them here on the Heart Centered Business Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. Until next time, I cannot wait to see you shine. Bye for now. Would you like more tips, tools, and resources to help you grow your heart-centered business? Head to tashcorbin.com today.